It's almost selfish of me because I don't know how many people watch this. Probably like one or two people will tune in.
You never know.
And then for me, it's like kind of more of a hobby.
Yeah.
And also just like getting those other perspectives of things, right? And I think for me, it just does benefit me in many ways having these conversations. And also, even if they're sometimes repeating the same themes, it kind of goes to solidify those concepts over and over.
Okay, that's cool.
But yeah, no, I mean, overall, like I saw that you had posted that, and even prior to that, like I've seen like the aura and like the energy that you've been putting out with like certain stories that you'll put up and like the things that you're reading, and that for me just really intriguing, and it kind of follows the same kind of wave that I'm kind of going on right now into my lifestyle.
Yeah. I don't. So what made you get into this wave though? Like what was? Did you like read something, or did you just like see a video? Or
interesting. Well, how about let me introduce it?
Okay.
Let me introduce the podcast, and then we'll start off with that question because that's a really good question. Okay. All right. And what is your last name? Patterson.
Yeah.
All right. Well, welcome, Imani Patterson. This is number 9 on the Eric Vargas Experiment podcast session.
I'm excited.
Absolutely, you should be. I always get excited, but I don't know about you, but I always get like certain like butterflies before I do like these type of things or like interacting with someone. And I think especially with you, Imani, like I haven't really talked to you one-on-one I think ever, so this would be the first time. And for me, I reached out for I guess various of reasons. One of them is just like the way that you broadcast and put yourself out in social media world, and we could even talk about social media, the pros and cons of that, because there's a lot to that. And this is for sure a pro. Like that's one of the reasons I even have those apps installed, is because opportunities like this. And I think I have a lot to learn from you as well, and like a different perspective apart from my own. So I'm very much looking forward to that. Do a little clap just so that things get synced up.
Okay.
And then one of the themes of my podcast is that you come out of this with at least something of value. And one way I can guarantee that is just by having a word of the day. Okay. Like one word, right? So if you're going to listen on, you could log off here and say, I learned something new, right? Or at least I hope so. But you get to choose which word we use. I'm going to start off with one of them. It's iconoclast.
Okay. Never heard of that.
Iconoclast.
A
person who attacks cherished beliefs or institutions. A destroyer of images used in religious worship. So those are the two different definitions.
Okay.
And then the other one is equipose.
Okay, equipoise. Equipoise. Okay.
And that is a state of equilibrium.
Okay.
So I'll let you choose which one like kind of resonated with you the most, or which one you...
the first one. What was the first one again?
Iconoclast.
But just because I've never heard of that, and I want to know more about that.
That's how you spell it.
Oh, okay.
Iconoclast.
A person who attacks cherished beliefs or institutions. Oh, wow. I've never heard of this.
Yeah. All right. And so we'll try to attempt to use that word in our podcast as just a challenge, you know. Okay. And if we can't use it at the end, we'll try to force it out.
Yeah.
And then lastly, with some of my guests, I'll use Urban Dictionary, their name. Okay. I don't know if you've ever done that.
No.
But it's kind of...
I know my name has a meaning, but I've never
Urban
used
Dictionary,
Urban Dictionary
has a whole different thing.
Yeah, facts.
But yeah, usually they're really cool. And sometimes I don't do it all the time because some names are just super generic. But Imani, like that's a very unique name.
Okay, let's see what it says.
So Imani, a beautiful female who is shy but very kind. She's mysterious and not many know much about her. She's beyond smart and is surprisingly actually very wise. She can be sensitive, but she hides her emotions well unless she's fed up with things. She's very cool to be around and actually funny. She's caring and considerate and cares most about her friends and family.
I feel like I wrote this. I feel like this is like spot on. Like whoever wrote this about me.
Let's see. You can trust her with anything and know whatever she says she means, whether good or bad. But don't let her good side fool you. Imani. Does that fit?
No, that's
a good one.
Yeah, that's spot on.
By some weird ass name, but yeah, that's on Urban Dictionary. I always get a good laugh, and plus, like, I mean, most of the time they're pretty fucking dope, and like, if it resonates with you, that's awesome.
That's cool. Yeah, that's really cool. That's funny. I'm like, who wrote that?
It fits though, right? It fits though, right?
Yeah.
So we got logistics out of the way, and that's kind of where I wanted to start. But apart from that, I think when we were having a general conversation prior to starting, you asked what got me into like the lifestyle that I live now, which is kind of a good vibrations, like spreading love, seeking kind of truth of things, and I guess being compassionate, or I don't know if that encompasses kind of what you're alluding to.
Yeah, it is.
But for me, I don't know if it was reading, or I think it all came from like a drive of self-improvement that I have within me, right? Like I've always wanted to make myself better than I was yesterday. I think it all kind of started with like working out. I was like, okay, I like working out and I'm seeing results.
Yeah.
And then I started picking up books, and the first book that I picked up that like I really enjoyed was How to Influence People and Win Friends by Dale Carnegie.
Okay, that's cool.
And I read that book and I was like super intrigued by the self-help kind of section of books, right?
Yeah.
And like how practical those rules were. And since then I just kind of picked up reading, picked up on people's energies, and I just continued that thread of like trying to make myself better, improving myself, not only physically but mentally, spiritually. And I started reading different books of different genres, and I kind of do like those psychology, self-help kind of books, and to this day now it's just everything that I listen and consume. Like if I'm on YouTube, my feed is going to be basically like Sadhguru, like wisdom talks, things of that nature. And I guess now it's just that's kind of what I'm revolving myself around, even with like my social media. Like sometimes I'll just purposely like just unfollow someone that I'm just like not liking what they're putting out. Also like certain pages, I think I stopped like following a lot of sports pages just because like I just didn't see too much benefit. So like my life started to tailor towards this lifestyle that I was creating and or am creating now, of more trying to be in tune with my spirit, my spiritual side of things. And a great way of defining spirit, because I know a lot of times people are like, oh, what is this woo-y thing, right? But one definition that kind of made sense to me was one of like if we're made up of mind, body, and spirit, right? It's like what happens if you remove your mind and your body, right? Like if you were to remove those, that's what's left is like your spirit. And like your mind is the way you think of things, the way you process things, the way you react to things, right? Your body, obviously your physical side, and what's left of that, I guess, is like this aura. That's kind of what your
spirit, your soul. Have you seen Soul?
I have seen that movie.
I love that movie.
I love that movie as well.
It's so awesome.
I wasn't gonna watch it until someone recommended it to me, and they're like, "You would love that movie." And I'm like, "I do love that movie."
It's awesome. It's so awesome. But yeah, I like it's surprising because the self-help books, I thought they were going to be cheesy. I thought they were going to be so cheesy, and that's why I've never read one. But like you said, I started reading them, and I really liked them, especially when they're like the spiritual ones. I would love those ones. So I want to check out the one you just said.
The Dale Carnegie one, the How to Win Friends and Influence People, or How to Influence People and Win Friends. One of the two is the title. But like a major thing that came out of that for me out of that book was one of the things of like, don't complain, like stop complaining about things. Like if you can't control it, there's no point in complaining about it. And if you can't control it, well then do something about it, type of thing, right? And everything else, we should try to remove complaints away from like our monologues or the way we talk to ourselves specifically, right? And also just knowing that I was just listening to a different podcast, like when you put your problems on the table and everyone else puts their problems on the table, you almost want to put yours back. You're like, oh shit, like my problems probably aren't as bad as like what everyone's putting into the pot.
Yeah, I agree. The complaining is just, it's so negative. It is so negative, and I never realized it that I was a big complainer just about little stuff. Even like, when I'm driving on the road, I'm complaining about traffic. Or even now I've noticed that when I'm around people who complain, it bothers me, and I try to tell them, well, at least like I'm always trying to change it to something more positive, because the complaining is just so negative, and it's negative energy. And I remember one time I read in a book, I'm not sure if it's in the 4 Agreements or if it's in the Power of Now, but they talk about complaining, and they basically say like humans like will connect off complaining, or you know, like you can always connect with someone if you're like talking bad about your job and stuff like that. Like we would rather connect with people off of like negative things than positive things. And so I was like, wow, like that really stuck with me, because I don't want to do that. Like I don't want to just be like connecting off negative energy. Like that's terrible. So lately I've especially been trying to not complain. I'll be like, okay, I'm not going to complain for a week, which is hard but I also like it because when you set out a goal like that, you know, you stop yourself in your tracks. Because I'll be like, oh, I'm about to complain, and then I'm like, oh wait, let me retract that. Can I say something positive, or should I just not say something at all, you know? So I agree about the complaining.
I heard there's this cool technique that I don't know where I learned it from, or I actually never have done it. I've just kind of just cold turkey kind of have been telling myself, okay, don't complain, or if I catch myself complaining, don't do it. But for people who are like trying to work on it, I've heard of people that put like bracelets and they'll switch it as soon as they complain. They'll put it from like the right arm to the left one, just to acknowledge, like, because I just complain, like I'm just gonna switch it hands, and that like moniker, that like gesture, you know, like helps you realize to yourself, like, I shouldn't be complaining as much. Like this bracelet switched like 20 times today.
Oh, that's cool. I'm gonna try that.
Yeah, it's worth trying. I've tried it once with other things. Because I'm sure you could do that with like, because that's kind of the thing with like habits, right? They're all based off of cues. So like if you are someone who like chews their nails or something, right? Every time you go and do it, like, okay, I gotta switch it. Like go ahead and like continue or whatever, but like don't like just, but at the same time like make that switch. But yeah, that was an interesting one that I had kind of heard, and I was like, I tried it. It didn't go as successfully as possible, but maybe for someone else it'll be better. Yeah,
because complaining is a habit. Like I think even just like having a negative mindset, or like just anything that is negative really is a habit. And I feel like, I don't know if you feel this way, like going on your journey, but even just going on my journey, like most of it is just creating new habits, like creating new thought process, or creating, you know, new things. Like for me, I'm a morning person. I've always been a morning person. And so I've tried to make sure that, especially now that I have a job, like a 9 to 5, that I don't lose that aspect of myself. So I have to make sure like I get up early enough so I can have a morning routine that satisfies me before I go to work, you know?
Absolutely.
And so, yeah, it's just like, I feel like a lot of it is learning new things, but it's like you got to create the new habit, which is what I'm always trying to tell my family, you
100%.
know? Yeah.
It's tough, especially when people try to take on too many habits at a time.
Yeah.
And also when they want instant results of things, or put too much demand on themselves. We're like, okay, I'm gonna now start going to the gym every day. Starting Monday, I'm going to the gym every day, right? Where we should set ourselves up for success in the sense of like, hey, you know what? Each Monday of each week, I'm going to the gym. I'm just gonna step in there. That's it. Like I don't need to go every week. And then once you've conquered that, or like you got a hang of that, then go Monday, Wednesday, you know, and then like slowly trickle it over instead of going full bore and like trying to do it 5 times a week. And that's what I think kills a lot of habits, is like when we don't necessarily set ourselves up for that success. And it's just those little wins that'll just, you know, like compound. And I think that is also, I'm just starting this book. It's called The Power of Atomic Habits.
Oh,
by James Clear.
I really want to read that. That's my next one on my list.
Yeah, James Clear also has this awesome newsletter, which I'm just going to plug him here because he's fucking tight. But he has his like a cool newsletter. So once you get that book, also try to sign up for his newsletter. Okay. It's worth having.
That's cool.
But that Atomic Habits, I think what he's saying is like the power of those habits is the compounding effect, right? It's just the little incremental wins every day start to add up to big wins in your whole lifetime. So, yeah.
Yeah, that's true, because in the beginning when I started all of this, I made just this morning routine, and I would be like, okay, I'm going to wake up at 6, and then I'm going to do yoga, and then I'm going to journal, and then like I would just do all these things, and I did it for 60 days. Like I forced myself to do it for 60 days, and I saw a difference. But then what would happen, when I didn't do it, I would feel bad. Yeah. And so there was like, I would feel disappointed in myself, you know? And I think that it's not realistic to have a perfect morning routine every single day. And so, you know, if I went out of town, I wouldn't do it, and then I would feel bad. Or if I just had a bad day, or I like went out the night before or something, I wouldn't always do the entire morning routine. So Then I decided that I would just pick one thing that I would do every day, no matter what. And then for me, that's just writing down 3 things I'm grateful for every single morning to just start my day. So it's like if I can't do the yoga or I can't do whatever or I'm traveling, I can easily still write down 3 things that I'm grateful for, you know? So
that's beautiful.
Thanks. Yeah. So that's like something that I know I can accomplish, and it's a new habit that I brought in, but it's like I never really fail at it because I really do like it, and it does change my perspective. So
yeah, I think gratitude can change someone's life immensely.
Yeah.
If practiced wholly and truthfully, like if you're truly grateful for everything, like even just waking up in the morning, I think is something that should be worth just taking an opportunity to be like, dang, someone didn't wake up this morning and I'm here. I got a chance. I got another chance at life, and I get to enjoy this, right? And like to all your problems that you have, you know, you could almost say, or actually something James Clear says, and or a technique that he has is like more of a vocal or like speech one, where when you're like, I have to go to work, instead of saying I have to, he just changes it to I get to go to work, right? So like kind of a little bit of that gratefulness of like, oh, I get to do these things. I get to go to the gym. I get to drive to work. I get to wake up and work from my house, right? So just this little, that one swap of words right there, right? Just really just goes to change like your whole perspective on the day. And that routine that you have of being grateful is something that I would like to implement into my life, just because I understand the power of it just in my regular like just life. But I think writing it down and having that morning routine changes kind of the game in a sense, because it kind of solidifies those things that you are grateful for each morning. And you didn't sometimes even realize, because I'm assuming you're not writing down the same 3 things every day.
No, so that's it. You know, I've been doing this since probably October. So
what made you, I guess,
it's been months of me doing it, and sorry not to cut you off, but it's at first in the beginning, you know, you'll be like, I'm thankful I have a roof over my head. I'm thankful for my family, like pretty generic things that you can be thankful for, obviously. But I think I like it also because it also becomes a challenge, because I try to not ever write the same thing down, because there's like infinite amount of things that I can be grateful for. So I like it too, because it becomes a challenge, because now I'm on like month 8 and I'm like, what am I grateful for today? And I'll be like, I'm grateful I have a toothbrush. You know, it seems like small things, but it's like those are things to be grateful for, because not everybody even has access to a toothbrush, you know. So it's cool because not only is it a habit, but it's also like a little like brain challenge in the morning. Yeah. That'll
for sure wake you up.
Yeah.
I know, for me,
because I'll be thinking, like I'll be sitting there, I'm like, like what can I write? And I'm like, you have something you can write. Look around this room.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely. And it definitely beats the just pick up your phone in the morning, right?
Yeah.
Because I know I would want to bet that a majority of people who can and or do have a phone, like wake up to their phone, like they open it and just instinctively go to like Facebook, Instagram, something, scroll. And now you're just back in the feed, right? You didn't give yourself any time to like really wake up. But I actually kind of to switch topics, and I'm very sure we'll almost go back to where we're at right now. I actually want to know like about your uprising, like your upbringing, like what made Imani?
My upbringing in general?
Or just like a general, like where'd you grow up? Okay, like what was your family situation?
Yeah, so I grew up, I'm born in Denver, born and raised in Denver. And it's just always been me, my mom, and my brother. We're like a squad, three peas in a pod. And so we're all very close. My mom was really young. And when she had me, she was like 16, 17. So she's really young. And I think just like seeing her work so hard my entire life, that's what instilled in me like a work ethic. And I don't know, it's just very inspiring to see someone go from like literally having nothing and working like a Domino's job to like working in like a very powerful position at a company. So I feel like that's just been inspiring for me my whole life. And so that's what always has made me work hard. And she's always instilled in us hard work and education. So I'm really big on education. And I went to CSU. That's where we met. And then I went to go get my master's in San Diego. And so I value education, but I also value just doing everything that you want in life. Like I remember when I was younger, I always wanted to live in LA. I always wanted to live in California in general. Like, that was just a dream I had. And it's crazy because now that I like the spirituality stuff and I think about manifestation, I pretty much manifested me living in California because I would think about it all the time. I would just say, like, I know I'm going to end up there. Like, there's nowhere else for me to end up. And then I also worked really hard to align myself to be able to be in a position to go to California. So yeah, it's crazy when I look back on that. I'm like, I actually manifested that. But yeah, so I love like just having the ability to be able to move around and try new things. I would say that's like the most important part of my identity, like being able to try new things, you know? Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Is it because it puts you in uncomfortable places and you know that that's where you achieve your most growth?
Yeah, because I was so shy growing up, like painfully shy. Like I couldn't look anybody in their face. I would hide behind my mom's leg, and I would envy people that were outgoing. Mm-hmm. And I just always wanted to be outgoing. I thought it was so cool. I thought that was like the best trait that you could have. And so I realized that if I wanted to be outgoing, I was going to have to put myself in different situations. And once I started doing that, I became an outgoing person, and then I grew exactly like you said. And now people who know me now know me as someone who's outgoing when Absolutely. I know like deep down I'm like pretty shy, but I just force myself to be outgoing.
So you still have the same feelings about it? You would want to be more extroverted, or do you like yourself how you are right now?
I do like myself how I am, but there are times when I'm feeling shy and I'm like, no, I'm like snap out of it. Like have fun, because life is short. I don't want to just be like in my shell. I want to go 100%. Out and meet people, you know? Yeah.
Life is too short at times,
I know. Right? Like I don't want to have any regrets. I don't want to look back and be like, wow, I wish I would have done this. So I just force myself to do it even if I'm scared.
And you had mentioned something about manifestation. It's something that I've been kind of trying to align or believe in a lot more. You know, just something that, in a sense, I feel like in my past, if I look back on it, I think I have manifested multiple things, like my graduating with engineering at CSU, right? Mm-hmm. Those are things that I've always, as a little kid, wanted to do, right? So, but I've never actually like put a label on it of like, oh, this is what manifestation is, right? Yeah. For someone who doesn't know manifestation, how to use it, what is your like tips, or how do you manifest things?
Okay. I would say that a good example of manifestation is when people say, I only have plan A, there is no plan B. You know, it's this idea that you have a goal or you have something that you want to do and you're not doing anything else but that. And so, you know, if you say like, I want to live in New York, you're not going to live in Nebraska. You're not going to live in Denver. You're only going to live in New York. So not only is your mindset like, I'm going to live in New York, but you're going to put yourself in a position that you can move to New York. And so when I think about me saying that I manifested living in California, I remember I always wanted to live in California. There was nothing I would think about besides living in California. I would like online look up pictures of California, and I asked my mom one time for my birthday. She was like, you can go anywhere you want, and I was like, I want to go to California. And then I was like, what is an opportunity that's going to get me to California? I wanted to go to grad school, so I was like, no brainer, I'm going to apply to a grad school in California, and I'm going to work really hard to ensure that I'm going to get into this grad school no matter what. And that's what I did. And then before I knew it, I lived in San Diego. So I just think it's not enough to just say you're going to do something and want to do something. You have to align yourself with that. Like, you have to put in the work, and then everything will fall into place, in my opinion.
Like, your actions also, or like your beliefs also have to follow with actions. Yeah. It's basically kind of.
Yeah, you can't just say, you can't doubt yourself. You can't be like, oh, how am I going to live in California? It's so expensive. You have to be like, I'm going to live in California and it's this expensive, so I'm going to work my ass off to get a job that is going to pay for my lifestyle in California. I feel like when you're manifesting, you can't really have any doubts because you're putting out that energy. You're putting out energy of doubting, so it's like, why would you be awarded with what you want if you doubt that you even are worthy of it?
That kind of gave me goosebumps because you're 100% right. It's like, in order to manifest something, you have to believe it 100%.
Yeah, that it's like already
ultimate
yours.
Focus.
I already live in California. That's what like you have to go about it as.
That's something that a lot of people will have to ask themselves the truthful or the honest question of, do I believe this 100%, or is this just a whimsical dream that I have? Like, if you have to be brutally honest and say, like, I 100% want to live in California. I
Yeah.
100% want to do this. I'm going to say no to people because I want to pursue this thing. Or I'm going to say no to things because I want this one thing.
Yeah.
And I think that's 100% right. And there's certain things that like I want in my life, like that I'm like, oh, I'm going to try to manifest or want. But there is like subtle inklings of doubt of like, I mean, what if that doesn't happen? Or what if this is going to happen? But I think that's counterintuitive to what I want in life. I need it to be in my head, like, I'm going to do this. I can do this, and I will do this type of thing.
Yeah, facts. And I think, especially for, like, people of color, I think it's also just harder for us to just truly believe in our hearts that we can accomplish something because, like, we didn't necessarily see anyone in our family do it. And in this book that I read, it's called You're a Badass. I think it's just called You're a Badass. She says someone who already has $1 million, it's going to be easier for them to manifest another $1 million because they already know it's possible.
Yeah.
But it's like, if you've never made $1 million yet, how are you going to believe that it's possible? You know? So that's like kind of like the hindrance.
100%.
And then I feel like that happens to people of color because it's just like, we don't even know someone that went to college. So how are we going to manifest, you know, $1 million home or like whatever we want, you know? But it's possible because lots of people do it.
That hit home. That really did. Like, I know growing up for me, like, in high school, I was like, I'm going to do construction.
Yeah.
Like, I think the only reason I signed up for college was because a lot of my friends were signing up for college.
Yeah.
So, like, if all my friends were, like, not going to do that, then I would have gone to college. I wouldn't be in the position I am today, right?
Yeah.
And it all did come from, like, my family background of, like, my dad, my uncle, they all did construction or manual labor. And my mom and my aunt were very much also, like, working fast food or something that wasn't necessarily using your mind or brain for, right?
Yeah.
And for me, it wasn't even possible. And, like, you've probably heard the imposter syndrome or the imposter effect, right? It almost was, like, since day one, right? Since, like, college, like, I cheated to get in here kind of thing. Like, I don't feel right. But I think it's something that with exposure and, like, kind of showing ourselves to the rest of the world, and especially people of color, right? Being like, hey, like, I'm where I'm at right now. You can do it as well.
Yeah.
I think that's very powerful, and like, leading by example is when it encapsulates that perfectly.
Facts, because it's just like especially when you're like one of the only people of color, especially up at like CSU or like just any
most
space.
School, I would say most schools.
Like when you're the only person of color, like you get the imposter syndrome. You're like, oh, should I even be here? Am I worthy of being here? Am I smart enough to be here? Or, you know, for me in grad school, I went to school with like a bunch of people that were from like the Bay and just like nicer parts of LA, so they were like well off, like their parents paid their rent and stuff like that, and so I would be jealous because I would be like, oh, I have to like work my ass off while you guys just get to go home after class. But that perspective is needed at the end of the day, you know? Like we're worth being there because they need people like us there, and we're gonna not only inspire other people around us, but I just think like our voices are really valid, you know? So even when you feel like you don't belong there, you do.
100%. And also, I mean, I also think that comparison is the thief of joy, right?
Yeah,
so like
facts. Sometimes
I almost envy those people, or not envy them, but I feel bad for the people that have been giving a lot of things, right? Because there's a certain value and reward that is given after like accomplishing a feat like that and putting yourself through college and like getting yourself through all these things and all this turmoil, because it wasn't all that easy, and to you now that means a lot more than to someone who just got it funded,
skated
right?
By,
yeah. And I guess it goes back to that work ethic that like you were bringing up with your mom, right? Like I bet she feels immensely proud to have put you through college, or not put you through, but to have encouraged you and got you to where you're at today, and especially where she started. Like she basically started 20 yards back from the starting line, right? And like now it looks like she's doing well off, and especially like seeing what she has produced as in you know, that's incredible. So what sparked, I guess, to ask you the same question that you asked me earlier, unless you have something else to say.
Oh, no. Is this my water?
Yeah, that's yours.
Okay, thanks.
Regarding like your awakening, I think sometimes people refer to it as that, like your like realization of like there's a lot more to this than just awards and like accolades, right? And material goods. There's like more, the answers that I need are within me, right? when did you make that realization? How did you make that realization?
I made this realization because, so it was the beginning of COVID, and I had just gotten out of a very toxic relationship, and I was still trying to finish off grad school, and then I ended up moving back here during COVID because I didn't want to be quarantined with my roommate at the time, even though I love her now, but at the time I didn't want to live with her. And I was just going through a lot, and I felt so sad. Like, I remember I would wake up and I would just be like, I can't wait to go to bed. Like, I just didn't want to feel that way anymore. And I think a lot of the times you have to decide, like, I don't want to live this life anymore. No one else can make that choice for you. And so I was like, okay, I don't want to live this life anymore. And so pretty much the only thing I did was work out. Like, that was all I did. And so I was fixing myself on the outside, but I wasn't really fixing myself on the inside. So it was like a false happiness because I was like, oh, I look good, but that only lasts for so long. And so then I just kind of started falling back into old habits, and I also was just at a point where I just was so unhappy with myself. Like, I just couldn't even look in the mirror every day because I was just like disgusted with myself, and I was like, oh, this is so sad. Like, I just don't want to be this way anymore. And so this is like in October of 2020. I just decided that I was going to try every single thing possible to get out of like the space that I was in. And so
was that hard to push yourself to do that?
It was, because I had to be very honest with myself, and I found a podcast on TikTok, actually. So thank God for TikTok. TikTok changed my life. But yeah, I found a podcast, and it was called it's called The Self-Love Fix. And so on that podcast, like, I learned to be like brutally honest with myself, and like why a lot of the things in my life were going a certain way was because I was choosing that. Like, it wasn't just because it was happening to me. It was because I was like making those decisions. I was repeating those habits. And so I was like, okay, I need to make the choice to be better. And so also, you know, like getting out of my comfort zone. So I was like, I'm going to try everything that I haven't tried before, and whatever sticks, sticks. So I started to read the self-help books, and they stuck. They were great. They taught me things, and I started to learn about spirituality because I saw that it helped other people, and I was like, oh, I don't know anything about this. I'm just going to try it out. And I even, you know, learned about affirmations, and so I started to like put up affirmations in my room, and I would read them every day, and I just tried everything possible, and whatever stuck, that's what I continued to do in my life. And I've just been able to see a transformation in my life because I just have such a different mindset. I feel like sun is like beaming from me every day instead of having like a dark cloud over me every single day. And so where I'm at now, I'm extremely happy. Obviously, like, nobody's perfect, and like I feel like working on yourself is just a lifelong journey. But like now I feel like I'm like extremely happy where I'm at in life, you know.
Yeah, and it's constant work. It's like constant gym work. You have to constantly go in. And you started scrawny, and now you're buff. Like, you know, you're where you're at for a reason. And to all these things, you have to go to the mental gym, right? Every day. Every day. You got to practice this every day in order to kind of see those results, you know, see abs coming out, if we're trying to reference that. But I think the hardest part would be that initial jump, you know, because when you're in that slump of like just sleeping in, because then those you have like a snowball of bad habits at that point. You're like eating junk food, you're watching junk media, you're
I was
not treating
out
yourself
with junk. I was being mean to myself. Like, it was just everything. I was like, okay, you need to make a change. Like, if you don't want to feel this way anymore, you're going to have to do something different.
Facts.
You know?
Yeah.
And like your mind, like you said, it's a muscle. So it's like you have to work at it all the time. Just like when you go to the gym and then you miss 2 weeks at the gym, you're like, damn. But
for real,
that's another thing that I like about the gym or just working out. Like, even when you do miss 2 weeks, you can always go to the gym the next day. And it's like the same thing with your mind. Like, if I don't say I'm grateful for 2 days, I can always say I'm grateful today. You know what I mean? Like, you can always hop back on.
I think we should love ourselves, and that comes in the form of like not beating yourself up if you miss a day at the gym, or if you for 2 or 3 days, or like for a day or two, right, you talk bad about yourself, or you just have low self-esteem for whatever reason, you know, something comes up and you're just like, well, it's okay, and like sometimes you could call a day a wash, you know, just go and eat junk food, go watch junk media, go watch a movie, and just have fun for that day. Just call it that, but just knowing that the next day you kind of need to get back on the horse. There was something I was going to mention. Yeah, no.
Yeah. Yeah, I agree. Even today, like normally, like I'm a pretty healthy eater. Just personally, I just feel like I just feel better when I eat a certain way, so I prefer to eat like a certain way. But today I was just like in such a bad mood, so I just ate Panda Express.
Yeah.
And it was so good. It was so good. And I was like, fuck it, whatever. Like today I'm eating Panda Express, tomorrow I'll get back to like my vegan shit. But
so are you you have a vegan diet going on right now?
I would just say I have a plant-based diet, but I try to eat mostly vegan and mostly just gluten-free because which is funny that I say that because I drink a lot of alcohol, but it's like, it's about life.
Gluten free.
Yeah, for real. Life is about balance. But personally,
Moderation,
like I know when I eat, just like I look at it as like being a little bit more disciplined with my food for me is self-love, because it's like I only want to put the best in my body because I love my body that much. And I don't want to put things in my body that make me feel like sluggish, or for me that make me feel like hella bloated and stuff like that. So I just look at it as like just another like healthy habit, or like a kind habit to myself.
Yeah, that's spot on. I mean, that's what self-love is,
Yeah.
I think sometimes social media kind of portrays self-love as like other things. Like I love the energy of like promoting it, but sometimes like it's put
superficial.
Yeah, it can be, right? And I think the hardest part about self-love is you have to be disciplined at it, right? Knowing that there is a bag of Cheetos in your house, right? And you're like, dang, like I could eat those right now, or I could eat healthy, or and so eating healthy, right, it takes a lot of energy. You got to cook things right. You got to clean up right after that. It's a process. It's not something that comes necessarily easy, but to those improvements mentally wise, like you have to again do those hard things, and at first it's going to be challenging. Like, oh, I don't want to make eggs, or I don't want to cook veggies. It's gonna now I got to wait an hour, right? But there's a certain blissfulness to like having self-control, but like, it's okay, like it'll take an hour, it's okay. I'll enjoy making it, I'll listen to something, I'll be in the moment about it, because to all these things, eating wise is, or like let's say reading or journaling or going to the gym, it does take some suffering, right? It's not always going to be rainbows and butterflies. And also what I wanted to say was, once you get to a certain point of like cruising altitude, I'll call it, right? Whether it's in working out, eating well, like you can have cheat days. Like that's almost like I look forward to like my Saturdays and Sundays, or Friday and Saturday, whichever days I choose, where I'm like, I'm just gonna grub out, like no guilt, no remorse. Like I worked my ass off this whole week. Now I get to indulge, right? And there's something just, as you were saying, like about that balance and moderation that is needed in life, and sometimes we don't afford that because we're living on the extremes of things, right?
Yeah, facts. Because especially when you're like a perfectionist, like I was a perfectionist, and so even in the podcast that I listen to now, she's talking about how not to be a perfectionist in your self-love journey. Like we were saying, like it's okay to have a day when like you're just being like a little bit mean to yourself, and then tomorrow you can get back on it. But I feel like even with like the eating healthy, you can become a perfectionist, or with going to the gym, you can become a perfectionist. And I just think you have to allow yourself to be able to make a mistake from time to time, or that you're not always going to be perfect, because I mean, I don't know if you feel this way, but for me, since I was a perfectionist, I would project that onto other people. And so when they wouldn't act like perfection, or like what I understood as like what I wanted, like the perfect friend or whatever to act like, I would be so pissed. And I like wouldn't allow them like any grace ever when they would make a mistake, because everybody makes mistakes. Like I'm sure I unintentionally make a mistake towards them. And so since I wouldn't allow myself grace, I never allowed anyone grace. And it was so messed up,
That rings again home, because I as well was a perfectionist, and even to this day, like after you said that, there's certain qualities of mine, like especially with interacting with my family, like I live with my family, and there's certain things I'm like, I want things a certain way, and as soon as someone doesn't do those things my way, like there's a certain like negative energy that flows through me of like just annoyance, and just like, why don't you do it my way? Like, come on, like let's just keep these things clear. So it does also portray internally, and that's something that I hate about myself, because it's caused me a lot of delay in certain things in life, where I'm wanting things to be perfect, the perfect scenario. I want before I start working on another project, I want to make sure my computer's the best one, so I'll like procrastinate in those ways of saying, oh, I need to have these things before I can start.
Yeah.
And if I don't have those things, I'm not going to start, you know?
Yeah.
And there's a lot of times we just got to start and say, fuck it. Like, whatever comes out of this comes out of it.
Exactly.
Like, I'm going to be perfectly fine if I don't achieve that. But perfectionism, I think it comes from, or at least I'll speak from my experience, right? For me, I think it comes from, like, seeing my mom, like, being a single mom, and then like having her to, or seeing her work so hard that I almost wanted to not disappoint her. I was like, I want to be perfect in your eyes. I want to make sure that I'm not getting in trouble. I want to make sure that I'm doing my best to get you out of that situation in some sense, right? And it all kind of stemmed from that in a sense, because I also see the opposite, where now like my younger brother like has kind of the opposite perspective. He's living a like, he doesn't have any need for anything, right?
Yeah.
And now he kind of has a very much more creative and just like in the moment spirit, like wild spirit to him, you know, where he's just like, oh, I'm just like living here and like, I'm just not really thinking about other things, just like what I'm doing right now, right? And there's a certain envy that I have, but there's a certain appreciation that I like to the other one. So it goes back to just kind of trying to find that balance. And right now I'm more on the perfectionist side. I need to start moving more towards like just letting it be how it is.
Yeah, that's facts. First of all, my brother is the same, and I do be getting jealous. I'm like, oh, you don't even know how hard I worked. Like, you're just coasting on by. But also, that for me, even goes back to social media, because it's just so crazy, like how I feel like social media is like the downfall of like human society, but I
see that,
but like I still love it. Like I love Twitter, I love TikTok, but even for Instagram, like with perfectionism, that's so crazy because I started this new thing where I was like, and this is more of like a chick thing, I feel like, but I started this new thing where I was like, I'm never gonna edit a picture again, because it's like when you edit a picture, like when you're editing every single picture that you're putting online, or you're like trying to make sure every single.
We're talking about filters here.
Yeah,
or
filters
like...
are just like physically like editing a photo, like you know, smoothing out your face or highlighting something or whatever. You don't allow yourself to have a flaw, and there's nothing wrong with having a flaw. You know what I mean?
Absolutely.
And so I think that like when you were saying that you have tried to like change your feed and even things like that, I try to change my feed to people who only post like as real as I feel like it can get on social media, because I don't want to be like have so much subconsciously like taking in perfectionism, you know?
Yeah.
Like I don't want that, because if I'm scrolling and stuff like that, I don't want to be taking in like, oh, I have to be smooth as can be and stuff like that. Like I want to see people who are just being themselves.
That's awesome. I like that, and I wish more people had that same mentality of wanting to be themselves. But I think at times it's like a certain ego and certain agreements, you know, to bring in the 4 agreements in here, right? That people have made with themselves to be like, hey, I need to have this certain image. Yeah. If I don't have this certain image, I'm not going to be liked. And I need to just change that. And it's, I guess, hard to break those agreements, and it's in a sense an ego. I think that's something that is alluded to in the 4 agreements by, what is his name? Ruiz.
Yeah. I don't know his last name. But
Don Raul. No, I don't know. But his last name is Ruiz, right? But that's something that I think is alluded to, is like this kind of ego that we have, and we got to kind of shed this self-image of ourselves.
Yeah. Thanks.
You're welcome.
Our ego, it's so bad. I had never even like heard of that. I heard about it like once in like psychology class, but it was never really broken down to me in the way that in that book they break it down to, or in...
How would you describe it?
I would describe our ego as something that is in our mind that I feel like the ego has good intentions for the most part. Like I feel like our ego just always wants to protect us, and so, you know, if we're talking about social media, like our ego wants us to be portrayed online because our ego wants us to be liked, or I feel like a lot of our validation comes from our ego, or, you know, I feel like when you have anxiety and things like that, that is your ego trying to protect you, but it's also like you're kind of doing too much, like leave me alone. And I think that you just kind of have to, like, especially because I talk to myself a lot in my head. I'm always in my head. And I have to realize, is this true? Or is this my ego just, like, fucking with me, like, trying to make me believe a certain thing, you know? And so I just think our ego is, like, a tool that can be used for good. But I think most of the time we use it for bad. Or we don't even try to use it for bad. I think that, like, our mind... You know, our mind is really powerful, but I don't think we realize that, like, we're more powerful than our own mind. Like, but you have to stop it in its tracks, or your mind's just gonna, like, keep on rolling, you know?
Yeah, I think that also, as soon as you try to stop something, it almost makes it worse.
Yeah.
And I think that's something that it's hard to understand how that works. But I think many have made the statement of, like, if I tell you don't think of a pink elephant, right, now you're gonna think of a pink elephant. Like, what the fuck? Like, now I can't stop. In the same sense of, you're like, oh, I need to stop overthinking. I need to stop letting my ego do its thing. Now you're almost, that is your ego speaking to you,
because you're, like, focused on that. So I think that even I remember I never really understood meditation.
Oh my god, I was just thinking that.
Yes. And so, like, before, I thought that when you were meditating, your mind was supposed to be blank. And so I was like, how the hell is that possible? Like, my mind is never blank. I'm like, my mind is always, like, in the works, like, just working. And then I saw a video when this girl, she was like, when you meditate, she's like, you're supposed to just let the thoughts, like, flow in and out of you. You're not supposed to hold on to them. You're not supposed to stay with them for too long, but you're not supposed to shut them off. And I remember somebody told me one time, when you have a thought, like, think of it as, like, a balloon, and you're just going to see it, it's there, then you're going to let it go, you're going to let it float away. And I feel like that really helped me with, like, meditation, because then I was like, oh, there's a thought, it's gone. Like, there's a thought, it's gone. I was never too focused on any thought that I had, you know?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And that, I'm glad you related that, because as soon as I said those words, like, that's what came into my head. I was like, that's what we're talking about next.
Yeah.
And in a sense, it's just like that being of, like, just kind of a lot of meditations, because there's a lot of them, different ones. And I think when it comes to it, just to put it out there, everyone should make their own meditation. Everyone should have their own technique. Like, you could frame it off of something you've read or heard or listened to or whatnot, but you should always, like, have your own characteristic to your meditation. That should just be a thing. And it goes to say that, like, you should never try to follow a teacher's teachings to the book, you know, because you're almost going to taint yourself to be like, oh, I fucked up there, you know, like, it's okay to do your own thing. And what I've seen a lot of traits in a lot of meditations is just kind of like being present with the right now, like noticing the breath going through your nose, seeing which nostrils, like, taking in the most breath, having a normal, like, breath. You don't have to have a cadence. At least this is how one of the ones that I've when I meditate, this is kind of how I do it, right? Just have whatever my breath is feeling. If it's fast paced, it's fast paced. If it's slow, it's slow. I don't try to force myself to be in a certain cadence, right? And of course, everyone has their own thing. If you want to, you can. But for me, it was just like, just trying to be present, acknowledging what's going on in my head, not trying to stop it, because the more you try to stop it, the worse. And, like, for when you were like, always trying to be blank, like, I'm trying to have a blank mind. I think that's a lot of the misconception when it comes to people who have never been taught how to meditate or what meditation is. They're like, oh, you have to be in Zen, like, you don't have to be thinking nothing, right? And it's almost the worst way of meditating. The worst type of, like, oh, I gotta clear my head, and then everything's coming in. And you're like, oh, this fucking sucks. Right?
You're thinking about some shit from, like, 2 years ago. When if you are thinking about that, that's okay. Like, just let it flow through. But nobody really teaches you how to meditate, nobody teaches you how to do anything. So I feel like you just kind of have to, like, go and seek about, either find your own way to do it, or maybe find a way that you can relate to, that it can be done, you know?
I would say curiosity is a great trait to have. And especially if it's fueled by, like, a motivation to just, I guess that is kind of what curiosity to me is like, you find something interesting, you're like, oh, I want to know more about it. Like, how do I get into it, right? And kind of teaching yourself and understanding that school, in a sense, almost was like a bad tool to teach you. It was like maybe too formatted and not as, like, loose as it could have been. And we have to learn that we should always be learning something new. We should always try to teach ourselves how to do something different. I guess just keep on pushing yourself and understanding that only because you stop school doesn't mean you should stop learning.
I agree. And that's why I think people should read. I feel like that's, like, the easiest way that you can just, like, keep your mind stimulated and also just learn something new, you know? So I feel like, especially in the areas where you're lacking, you can always learn something new. Like, I know for me, like, I was so bad at, I knew nothing about money, like nothing. Like, I barely even understood like a credit score. So I was like, this is something that I can learn, and I can learn it at my own pace. And like, I'm just gonna have to go out of my way to find a teacher, which happened to be like different books. And then I feel like you can do that with any aspect of your life that you want to learn.
Seriously.
More in. Yeah.
Seriously. I want to transition to kind of, I think I've heard you say that you are a feminist and you have like that output. So I'm just really interested on like that, like how you practice it, what if you practice it, or like how you practice it, like just getting to know what that is and like understanding that.
Okay. Yeah, so I definitely consider myself a feminist. I would say that for me, my definition of feminism is just equality between men and women, like throughout all aspects of life, like social, at work, whatever. It's something that's very important to me. And so I feel like when not all activism is going to be like you protesting in the street.
Yeah.
And if you want to do that, that's fine. But I know for me, that's not something that I am going to prioritize in my life. I don't necessarily always want to do that. Will I do that? Yeah, but it's not always safe. It's not always like accessible and stuff. And so for me, the way that I practice feminism in my life, it's just having conversations with people, you know. And it's having conversations in a way where I'm trying to listen to their perspective, and I'm trying to understand where they're coming from. But I'm also, you know, letting them know, you know, like, hey, like, this is probably, like, by you saying that, you're actually being harmful to women and things like that. And so I know, like, even for men, like, I think people kind of forget that, like, we're all socialized to think a certain way. And especially, like, men of color, like, they're socialized to be, like, overtly masculine because, unfortunately, like, white people or just white supremacy, like, I think tries to, like, demasculate men of color very often.
In what ways?
I think, like, I can't necessarily speak for any community but, like, the black community, but, like, for me, when I think of that, I think of, like, how, like, white men will call, like, black men, like, boy. Like, you know, it's just, like, the subtle things like that, like, when they call them boy, or, like, I think there's just this expectation of, like, for, like, men of color to just be, like, super masculine. And so then it's like, well, you can't, if that's the expectation of them, you can't necessarily be surprised when they're going to have, like, maybe, like, a more misogynistic view. But that doesn't mean that they can't learn. Like, we're all unlearning things. And so I think that for me, like, being an activist in feminism is, like, also granting people grace to just teach them things. Like, some people need to be taught things. I've even, like, had to teach my own mother things, like, hey, like, I know you're not trying to be hurtful, but, like, the way you're talking to my brother and the way you're talking to me is, like, actually pretty sexist, you know? And this is why. And I don't think you have to be mean about it, and I don't think you have to, like, attack people. But for me, like, being a feminist is, like, educating my peers. Like, if I don't do it, who else is gonna do it? You know what I mean?
100%.
Yeah.
I do also, like, when it comes to the masculine thing, that's something that I do notice even in, like the Latino Mexican community, because that's kind of where I can shed some light on, right? And it also comes from that, like, having your parents or, like, not have a lot, so, like, you're, like, almost having to put up a shield, or, like, from an early age, I would assume with, like, a lot of kids or boys that had a single mom, like, they almost have to, like, grow up a little bit faster, right? Like, be a little bit more masculine. Like, okay, I'm the protector of the house. My dad isn't here. I gotta, you know, step up to the plate, to this image of, whether you got it through movies, TV shows, like, you're putting up that image of kind of what you've been taught. And I for sure think that I also had in my notes, you know, like, something that a lot of men sometimes don't do is, like, showing their emotions, or, like, if you feel sad, like, sometimes it's like, I'm not sad. Like, I'm never sad. If someone's, like, tells a guy, like, a really macho guy, be like, have you ever been sad? Like, never. Yeah. I'm never sad.
Or have you ever cried? They're like, no. Never. Like, I'm
never.
Like, what?
Yeah. And I feel like that's just very disingenuous, and also seems like it's hurting you, because, like, I feel like as a human being, you should be able to express all spectrums of emotions and without any remorse. And it goes back to kind of having that confidence in yourself. Loving yourself and knowing that, like, you don't really care about how people see you. You're like, hey, you know, I'm going through a fucking shitty day. I don't need to explain it to you. I'm just gonna be in this funk for whatever time, right? So I do see those traits,
and that's why, like, that is why I think more men, like, if you don't want to call yourself a feminist, that's fine. But that's why more men should try to, like, I think, join women and, like, try to, like, go against certain societal norms, because it's, like, not only does, like, living in, like, a patriarchal society, like, harm women, but it's, like, it harms men, too. Like, it doesn't allow you guys to be, like, have emotions, or, like, I know for me, like, one of the biggest ones I always see is, like, when it comes to, like, child custody and stuff like that, you know, like, I'm like, well, the reason that, like, men don't get the kids is because society doesn't think that men, like, have emotions and can be caretakers and stuff like that. And it's like, you can, but it's like, we all have to, you know, fighting against, like, sexism and stuff like that. It's not just women, it's all of us. We got to do it together. And I feel like it'll benefit all of us, you know, because there's women who don't allow men to be, like, feminine and stuff too, you know, like, it's not just men doing that shit, it's women too. So everybody needs to, like, do it together. Like, we all need to kumbaya and seriously work towards it, you know. It's the same thing with racism. Like, people of color can't fight racism alone. Like, white people have to help us. So it's like with sexism, men have to help us too at the end of the day.
I think it just all stems back to just whatever labels we want to put on it, sexism, racism, but it just goes back to loving yourself, being truthful with yourself, and just being genuine with yourself. And
fuck the stereotypes. Like,
I want to say that, like, a lot of people in the world, I would just say America, because that's the culture I'm used to, right? Because I don't know what's going on in other countries, but I want to say in America, a lot of people just are living a certain facade, a certain image, right?
Facts.
And, like, having multiple faces, right? Because I would say I come from experience of saying that, like, at one point, like, I had a face for my work, right? I had this face. I had a face for my family. I had a face for, like, my close friends. I had a face for, you name it, right? Going to the store, I had, like, a different voice, and you're like, what the fuck is going on, right? And, like, one of my goals that I work on actively is joining all those faces just to be one, right? I want to be the same person with a romantic partner as I would with, in a sense, like a coworker, but not, you know, like the intimate side of things, but just being myself 100% without any remorse. Obviously there's certain things that I would hold back just because I'm not trying to, like, get myself into any trouble or anything like that, but, like, just trying to be frank and be myself at all times. It's, for one, very liberating, because I think, I forget who quoted it, or I think it might be, like, Oscar Wilde, that was like, the more, or Mark Twain, it's like, the more you lie, like, it's actually easier just to tell the truth about things and just be yourself, be truthful to yourself, than it is to, like, tell all these lies. Because now you got to remember all these lies, everything you've been telling people, right? And it's just almost more stressful, more thinking, more anxiety that comes into your life. But yeah, just going back to it, it's just, like, kind of like just loving yourself. Because then as soon as you start loving yourself and you have an abundance of love within you, that starts to go elsewhere, you know? You're like I've seen it, like for me, like, social media, I hate the fact that it, like, is divisive in the sense that, like, it's kind of addictive to me. Like, I could log on and just, like, scroll and, like, or, like, I'll just open my phone and then I'll just go to that social media app, like, non-consciously. I'm like, what the fuck just happened there? But I also love it because, like, I could go out there, reach out to people, like, be like, yo, hell yeah, like, you're fucking killing it, like, you're doing great things right now. And I think people need and or want to hear that as well, right? And that's kind of where I put that. But it just, if we all just kind of, as you were saying, the kumbaya, just giving love, spreading love, you know, and, like, it will solve a lot of the problems that are just societal problems, you know, from, you name it. I feel like if people were genuinely compassionate and loving people to themselves and then to other people, like, we would have a lot of issues that we see now, like, very much kind of resolved, you know?
I agree.
And unfortunately, the thing that we can't do is go into their mind and fiddle and be like, okay, now you're going to get some more of this, more of that. And as you were saying, to your feminist approach is, like, you're very much conversational. You want to get to know their perspective, and you hope that they see your perspective as well. And that's kind of where I think we can do the most impact is in helping ourselves, and when you do interact with people, kind of giving them that love that they've been missing.
Give them, like, you have to give people compassion, because just in general, like, when it's, like, I feel like when you understand like your own journey and you're accepting of your own journey, then you can be accepting of other people's journeys. Because I wasn't always like, I didn't always have these perspectives on like all of this stuff. I didn't always have these perspectives, but like I just got them one day. Like I'm sure if somebody searched what I was posting like in 2010, like it would be fucking disturbing. But it's like I allowed myself to learn and be like, hey, that was wrong. You're going to move forward now. And like, that's what we have to do with other people too. You know, like we have to give them compassion, basically. I feel like we don't give other people compassion, just like you said, when we don't give ourselves compassion. Because it's like, how can I be nice to you and love you if I don't even love myself? Like, I don't even know what that means. Like, I don't even know. I can't even give love to myself. How am I going to give it to you?
Yeah, that's... it's so true. And there was something I was going to say there, and I just lost my train of thought when it comes to kind of spreading that love.
About being kind.
Being kind. It was good too.
Dang. It'll come back.
Yeah. It always comes back. Yeah, and to use the word iconoclast, you know, there's a certain traditional mold that like I wish men would be willing to break, and like and that is like just expressing your emotions and like not feeling deterred to do it. Like I'm not forcing anyone like you have to cry, bro. Like if you're not crying, like come on, you gotta cry right now. You know, like by no means am I saying that, but like if you feel sad, like feel sad.
Yeah.
If you feel mad, feel mad.
Yeah.
Just don't let that control your emotions and whatnot. Because it's very liberating in the sense of like removing that mask, that facade.
Yeah.
As soon as that happens, at least for me, it was a weight lifted. As soon as I like was like, I don't care how people like really trying to, because I know a lot of people like, I don't give a fuck what people say about me, fuck everyone else. Like sometimes I feel like those words are coming from a place of just like revenge or like kind of more negative. But if you actually like think about it, it's like I don't care because like I love myself. Yeah. And like you can make fun of me, but I'm confident in myself. Yeah. I know where I'm at. Yeah. And if you're gonna laugh at me and get away from me, then that's just kind of life telling me that you're not supposed to be here with me, you know, and I'm okay with that. Yeah. So iconoclast, I'll try to use it. And what was the other one? Equipose? Yeah. I guess we gotta reach a point of equipose with everyone, right? We should all see each other in the same light.
Yeah, I agree. Like, I feel like you should never see, like, we should all be seeing each other, like, on the same level. Like, we can't, like, for me, like, you know, you never want to see anyone inferior to you. Like, you don't want to see, well, yeah, actually, you don't want to see anyone inferior to you, and you don't want to believe that you're inferior to anyone. Like, I think that you need to view, that's another thing, like, I think we need to view others as just, we're all on the same level. We're all on the same level, just going through different paths in life. Like, no one's better, no one's worse, and I think that is where, like, a lot of the, like, people worry about judgment from others because they want to be validated by others.
And they judge themselves so hard.
And they judge themselves. And,
that's what I was
then you
judge
say. Others because you're, like, you not only do you judge others, but then you expect other people to judge you because you're like, well, I'm judging you. Shit. Like, I know you're saying some rude shit about me.
That's the thought I was gonna, that was what I was thinking. Yeah. And that's exactly what you were saying earlier, right? When, like, you are harsh on someone. Yeah. Like, it's just your own projections being projected out. And that again is in the Four Agreements, which was a fantastic book. Like, it's basically as soon as you have these negative thoughts about yourself, you can't expect them not to have them about everyone else. Like, if you critique yourself physically, like whenever you go out or you're interacting with people, you are going to critique people physically because you're doing that to yourself. And that's just one of those things that we just gotta, again, it goes back to, if you love yourself, you're gonna stop hating on people. You're just gonna approach people with the respect and just level-minded. And when you were saying, like, when you think of someone as inferior, like, literally wars have been made because people thought other people were inferior, right? And it's just a stupid way of thinking.
It is, especially the self-love, because I feel like it just helps with so much. Like, it helps with comparison, it helps with jealousy, it helps with envy, because it's like, once you, like, feel good about yourself and, like, you know, you're like, oh, like, the world is like my oyster, like, I have so much abundance in my life, like, I love myself. You don't have to hate on other people. Like, you don't have to be like, oh, like, why do they get this? Like, I deserve this. Because you're like, I'm on my own thing. Like, there's enough to go around for everybody. And so I feel like a lot of people just send, like we said, like we've been saying, is just the negative energy is just because you don't have enough self-love, which is okay because we're not taught how to love ourselves, but it is your duty to get there.
100%.
You know? Yeah.
And I think that goes to every characteristic you can name. Trust, respect, loyalty.
Yeah.
If you're not loyal to yourself, how do you expect to be loyal to anyone else? If you don't trust yourself, how do you expect? And a lot of, like, when it comes to relationships, if like someone is feeling that someone else is going to cheat on them, it's because you're probably most likely the one that's like wanting to cheat. So you're suspicious of that person. Exactly. And that was something that you had said earlier, and like, I forget what you had said it, but like you were talking about it again. And I was like, that projection is so real. It's like a projection of your ego on everyone, right? Yeah. Because like we have this hologram of who we are, and we almost put people in those molds, right? Like, oh, you're not fitting that. I'm judging you because this is how I feel.
For real.
And it's fucked.
It's so fucked. Messed up. Like, we judge people all the time. Like, I don't know. Everything that I choose to do is because I want to do it because it makes me happy. And like, we don't have to judge other people because they don't choose to be happy in the same way, you know? And even like when it comes to eating healthy, like, I know I like to eat in a certain way, but if other people don't want to eat like me, that doesn't mean anything of their character or who they are. True. That's just like their own thing, you know? We're both different, and that's okay. And I think, I mean, eating healthy is just like such like a surface level one, but like with a lot of things in life, we judge people because we're like, well, that's not what I would do, but that's not their life. Like, they can do whatever they want.
One of my biggest pet peeves of myself, or not pet peeves, but something that I like and dislike, is the fact that like I'm kind of a solution oriented person, right? When someone comes with a problem to me, like I'm always like, dude, this is the solution. Like, this is how to do it. Like, you got to do these things, right? Yeah. But in a sense, I am lacking that perspective because there's a lot of people that just aren't where I'm at, don't think how I think, right? Have different things in front of them that, like, for me, it could be as clear as day. Like, why are you even thinking like that, man? Yeah. And it almost seems like I'm making it worse, you know? Even though I have, like, the greatest intentions, like, to that person, like, well, damn, he made it seem so easy, but, like, it's just not for me, right? So that's something that at times, like, I battle between, like, saying something and not saying something, just because, as you were saying, everyone's on their own journey. I don't know where they're at their stage, but I also do think there's a benefit of, like, kind of hearing it, you know, because if no one says those things out loud, like, you just... it's almost impossible to see that other side, right? Yeah.
I try to do it, like, because I'm the same way, because I get frustrated, and I get so pissed, because I'm like, this is so logical, like, why do you not understand this? Or I'm like, why would you even, you know, but that's mean, and, like, I try to do it now as, like, I don't say anything unless they ask me for advice. Because I feel like when I just push it on them, like, not only I know for me, I'm probably doing it in a rude way. And two, like, you take away, like, their autonomy. Because it's like, nobody, like, when we decided to make those choices, nobody said it to us, most likely, you know? Like, we figured it out ourselves. And I feel like there's, like, I don't know, like, you feel pride in yourself because you're like, look at where I was and look where I was able to get myself. But when you're constantly like, you need to do this, you need to do this, you need to do this, like, you're not allowing for them to have that same experience, you know? True. So I try to not say anything unless they, like, specifically ask me, but it's hard as hell. Because I feel like
there should be a way I feel like
I have a muzzle on, you know? Like, I'm like, fuck, I just want to tell you, like, you're doing it wrong.
I get that, and I've caught myself even, like, with my stepdad, like, I'll have conversations with him and then almost seem like I'm preaching to him, like, dude, I'm working out, I'm reading, like, you should be doing these things too. Like, I don't know why you feel so bad about yourself, like, you should be doing these things, right? And I have to, like, take a step back and think about it and almost try to train myself or guide myself to, like, more have them come up with those ideas than me, you know? But I think that's something, again, that it's something that you have to work out, as in, like, how to say things in conversation, how to have conversations, right? And even though you know the answer, how do you lead someone to the answer? Those are all traits that I would have to say I'm just not where I'd want to be or have. So
have you ever read The Alchemist?
I have.
So it's kind of like The Alchemist, because he helps, I can't remember the boy's name, but he's like
Sergio.
He's like constantly like
Sebastian.
Like, in that book, I feel like he's learning so many methods, and people are like dropping gems, but they're not like telling him like the specifics. Like, they're not saying like you have to do X, Y, and Z. They're kind of like, like, you know, these are omens, or like they're like, you can do it. Like, they're just like dropping these little hints here and there, and he figures it out for himself. So I feel like that's like a good way to go about it, and like they don't do it in like a shameful way, because I feel like it's very easy to be like, well, you should be working out, like you would feel better if you worked out, that's why you feel like shit since you don't work out. But you kind of have to rephrase it as like, you know, maybe if you worked out you would feel better, but if you don't, it's okay, but that's just a suggestion. Or like, if you do want to work out together, do you want to come with me? Like I feel like you have to be a little bit more encouraging, because I found for myself at first, and I see this about other people, like you get on, like once you have like your like awakening or whatever you want to call it, you can unfortunately become a little self-righteous.
Yeah.
You know?
Or virtuous.
Yeah. So it's like you got to check that, and you got to remind yourself, you got to humble yourself, you know, like not everybody's at that point as you. It's going to take some people longer, unfortunately.
Yeah, that's a internal conflict, or I don't know if dichotomy is a good word there, but like a conflict that I have between myself of like wanting to help and also understanding that help isn't necessarily helping, or like the way I am doing approaching that help isn't the way that it is best used. And it kind of goes back to that kind of leading by example philosophy of like, hey, you know what, like I'm working out, you want to join, come join. I'm like, you know, just showing that energy, because I think a lot of the times, as you were saying, you become a little bit virtuous, and I see that those traits in myself, so like I'm not afraid to not admit those things, but like there's like, it's almost like, guys, like check out this world, like you guys got to come over here, you know, that's where that energy comes from. But at the same time, it does kind of come off as self-righteous. It's like everyone needs to be on the same wave, you need to do the same things I'm doing. And it goes back to kind of that whole meditation thing too, of like, you can't teach someone a specific way of doing things and you have to follow this plan, because then they're not going to follow it. You have to make each process your own, or else it's not gonna click. Like if it's someone else's process, you're like, oh, I don't want to do this, like but if it's your own process, you like get your own routine,
you fuck with it then. And I agree, because especially even like with people, like you don't, all your friends don't have to be spiritual like you know, but like you would want all your friends to have like good energy and like high frequencies, but like I don't have the expectation that my friends are going to be like writing down all their gratitude and stuff like that, like if that's not their thing. But it's my thing, but it's like, I'm not like, you're still my friend if you don't do that, you know what I mean? Like I can still hang out with you, it's fine. But for me, it's just more about like your energy and like who you are as a person.
That makes sense. Yeah, it's just sometimes like you find such bliss in your own experiences that you like kind of,
you want to share it, but it's like, and you want people to join it too, but it's like they gotta find their own. And I don't know, what do you feel like your friends, they because for me, I'm going through like a friend transformation, and I know this is like, I feel like, I don't know, this just happens with women a lot. Like I feel like men like keep their friends, because even when you're talking about like showing yourself different faces, like I feel like men, they just have like a group of friends, but I feel like for women, it's like I have a friend that like, you know, this is like my club friend, this is like my workout friend, this is like my friend I can be sad to, because it's like I'm only showing like that part of myself to each of them. Like the club friend, like she's not knowing like my sadness, you know? And so it's like, I don't know, like how have you like just gone about like finding friends? Like is it just like you guys just meet and like your vibes are right, or like how did you even meet Itzel? Like how did
I want to tell the true story, so I will. So basically in college, I had class with one of my friends, or a chemistry class, and he ended up supplying me things. And it turns out that he lived in the same hall that Itzel lived in. So I would frequently go up to meet my friend. And then I would see him, and actually one of my friends from high school, like she was like, hey, there's this guy in my hall, he's Mexican, you gotta meet him, because I'm Mexican and she knew that. And she was like, you gotta go meet him, you know, like you guys are gonna hit it off. And then like we got introduced, and it was just this awkward like, what's up, man? Like nice to meet you. And then it was just like, all right, we didn't have like, I feel like me and Itzel, which is the friend we're talking about, the mutual friend, we didn't really like hit it off strong to where we're at today. Like we weren't like instant friends, but now we are, and that's how I met him. But for me, I think I have a very extroverted personality.
You
like,
do.
I just like to interact with people, like random people. I could just go and talk to them and make conversation, make chit chat. And as of recently, I've probably gotten better than that. Like previously, I would be kind of shy, as you were saying, and like I'd push. Like I was naturally extroverted, but like I would, when it came to new people, like I would probably like nah. I'd be like, oh, I don't like. I'm just gonna hang out with the people that I just been introduced to. But now, I'm very much more like I like to interact with people. I like to talk to different people, just because I also have noticed the power in networking and like the opportunities that I can bring to people and the opportunities that people can bring to me, and also not even that they can bring to me, but that I can use their opportunities to be like, hey, I have a friend over here that actually is needing of your service or can provide a service to you as well, right? And now that's kind of how I see it, and it also comes just from being okay with making a fool of myself, being myself, understanding that it's not the end of the world, and also that kind of that limited time that we do have here, understanding that it's just like I'm only here for an X amount of time. I probably won't see this person ever again. I'm just gonna go out of my way and be like, hey, what's up, you know? And especially knowing that I don't have any ulterior intentions with anybody, I think is key, because as soon as like there's an ulterior intention, especially when it comes to like talking to women, if I go like into a club or like a bar and I'm like, that girl I want to date, I want to marry, whatever, now I'm gonna go and talk to her and blah, 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 blah. Instead of just being like treating that person like a human and being like, hey, how's it going, how's your day, how's your night, you know, like what have you been up to, and just treating it more on that vein, I think has helped me out to kind of have a large group of friends. And for me, I would say it also kind of relates when you were saying like I have a group of friends that I can talk relationship talk. I have a group of friends that I could just talk sports with. You know, I have like segmented. Said thing, but I don't think it's faces at that point. I think it's just what is brought out from me from those people. Because if someone was to ask me like my sports friends or whatever were to ask me like, yo, how's the girls' business, right? I'd be like, well, if you want to know, I'll tell you, right? So I think it's just what gets brought out of you from different people, and I don't think it's necessarily like a facade or a different face. I think it's a facade as soon as someone asks you something about something and you start to kind of like deviate or like, backtrack, true. You know, you're like, I don't want to talk about that with you, you know?
No, that's true, because certain people can just bring out like certain things about you, and I feel like when there's somebody who's bringing out something negative about me, I'm like, oh, I don't want to hang out with you anymore, because you're bringing out like a side of me I don't want. And for me that's just like gossip or something like that, you know, being mean to people. And but I love when I meet someone that's extroverted, because like in my heart I'm an extrovert, so it's like I love when people can bring that out in me. And those are like the people that I want to hang out with all the time. The extroverts.
It's one of those things that people try to change, but at times it's just natural. It's natural. Just natural. You're just either,
you feel comfortable around them. You feel like you can be yourself, you know.
And also, like, when you are natural to yourself. It's like, if you're an introvert and you want to be extroverted, like, try it out. But, like, also remembering that, like, you know, I do like my alone time. I do recharge by myself, where I sometimes find that, like, if I'm alone for too long, like, I almost need to, like, I'll hit up someone. Like, yo, what are you doing this weekend? Like, let's go hike. You want to go talk? You want to just hang out? And it varies, because in the same vein, I do like talking to people who are more reserved, more introverted. It just brings us another thing to the table. Have you ever done a personality test?
I've done it like a long time ago.
Like a Myers-Briggs?
Yeah, I've done it a long time ago.
I'm gonna send you a link. I'll send it afterwards. Okay, and it like basically kind of tells you, and is very fun. And for my personality trait and way it came back, it was like pretty like brutally honest. Or like just how when I read your Urban Dictionary like reading, right? It was. A lot of those things were like super resonating. I was like, damn, like they know me me well, and they got me clocked down. I am scared, right? So it's worth trying. I had Itzal and like all of our friend group do it. So like you could even ask Itzal like what is his personality type. But yeah, overall, I think it also comes back to knowing yourself. A lot of this has been a common theme as in my late episodes. It's just like. Just knowing who you are, like being honest with yourself too, and be like, yo, I don't like hanging out with, or I don't like going out to the bars, or I like more casual things. And then being, or I guess removing those assumptions from people's minds, because you never know what assumptions people have of you, or without you saying it. Like if you're like, I don't want to go to Lodo this week. Can we go to a different place? You know. Yeah. And if you don't voice those things, you're always gonna go to Lodo.
Exactly. You have to voice what you want. You have to voice your needs. Like you can't just expect people to just know it, you know, because they're like other people are voicing their needs, so like you also have a right to voice yours. Yeah. And like what you want to do just in general. So that's true.
Very true. There's something that I do want to talk about, and that was our first interaction.
Okay.
I feel like it's just, we have to talk about it. I want to be vulnerable with everybody. Yeah. And like what basically happened, because I think it's something that there's a lot of learning that can be done there. Yeah. But basically, I think this is the first time I've ever met you and Rebecca. Yeah. And we went to...
You had different hair.
I did.
You had short hair.
I had short hair. I was like...
I can't even remember. But I just remember
I would show you a picture, but just a short, clean cut guy. Now I'm really embodying my peaceful, loving
curls,
self. Yeah. But basically, I think it was at Mojo's. It was like a Wednesday. And I was like, yo, some of my homegirls want to go out, and I'm like, okay, let's go, right? Yeah. And just everyone will find out as I told it, right? Yeah. But basically, we went out and we went to Mojo's. We're like in this little corner, and we're having this conversation. Yeah. And you and Rebecca start talking about kind of. A distaste towards like white men.
Yeah, I do remember that. Oh my god.
And I'm like, what? And I'm just like in awe, because like for me, like I guess I still do have like a lot of white friends, right? White male friends, and I was like, what the fuck? Like, you think they're bad or whatever? Also, this is just drunken state. Both of us are at least
we've been drinking,
intoxicated, and I go on this missionary trip to basically go find. Or actually, I don't have it. I don't have it in my mind. Yeah. I do not have it in my mind to go find a white friend or anything like that. I'm just like going out, Mojo's, dancing. Yeah. And basically, I run into a white male friend of mine. I'm like, oh shit, you gotta be my friends. Yeah. And basically, I go after you had vulnerably told me these things, right? Yeah. You and Rebecca. I go and present you to my white male friend. I was like, look, here's my white male friend. Like, talk to him. Yeah. And you guys are just very much uncomfortable. And I'm like I thought this was going to be like a proof of pudding, right? Like, look at this example of a great person. Yeah. And it wasn't like that. Like, I basically could tell after that happened that it was just like a switch in like vibes. And it was just like because kind of like a... turned my back to, or you guys kind of like, and I as well kind of was like, okay, that was fucked. Yeah. And my understanding and reasoning for why it was fucked is basically the way I try to have that conversation. Mm-hmm. It wasn't a productive conversation. It was a, hey, in your face, almost like a fuck you, like try, like deal with this, like what do you mean, like you know, instead of having like a conversation with genuine interest of understanding your perspective. Mm-hmm. And for like, absolutely, I'm sorry for like doing it the way that I did, right? And I just hope that the learning lesson for everyone that's listening, and it almost kind of like made kind of our relationship kind of from there, like that first impression was kind of fucked in a sense, right? So like, I feel like that kind of trickled over to other things. But the way I see it now is like, if you're wanting to have a conversation with those people, and don't try to like bring other things into that mix, right? Yeah. Whether you agree with something or not, like you're not gonna bring a black person to like a KKK person. It's like, look at this person. You not fuck with them, you know? It's just like, I think it's better facilitated earlier. So I guess, what are your thoughts on that? What is something that I could have...
First of all, that's hilarious. Second of all, we did become friends the next time we went to the bar. Yeah. We were like, okay, it's okay. You were like, I'm sorry. And we were like, it's okay. I think, first of all, I just want to say we were in completely different places back then. And I would say that it's like, I look back on it now because, in general, like with our ego, I think what happens is once we have like a certain perspective, when somebody doesn't agree with our perspective, we take it as like a dig at us. But it's not necessarily a dig at us. It might be like a dig at like our perspective, but it doesn't mean that they're like, fuck you, like just because we disagree. I mean, there's certain topics that I'm just like not comfortable with disagreeing on. But in general, like, I think that we took, like, for me, I can't speak for Rebecca, but for me, like, I took it personal because I was like, what the hell? And so I think that one, those conversations don't need to be had at the bar because it's like you're drunk, you know, and so like everybody can't even like say their point fairly. Two, like I agree, like I think that if somebody's sharing something like that, you do have to be like a little bit more sensitive to them. But once again, like just because like we say that we don't, at the time, we just said that we didn't like white guys. That doesn't mean like we're attacking you because you have a white friend. And because you say that you have a white friend, that doesn't mean that you're attacking us, you know? And so I feel like, one, that's like a learning thing for me in general, just like about how I want to go about things. I don't want it to be like the first time I meet someone, we have one disagreement and it's like we can't even be cool. Like that's like the conversational thing I was talking about now. Like now, like I want to approach things as like, okay, well, this is why I feel this way. Let me know why you feel this way. But I would not do that at the bar anymore, you know?
Yeah.
So if I could do things over, I'd want to have that conversation somewhere else, and I'd want it to be like more of a conversation like without the guy. But I'm glad we could be cool now because seriously. I like you. You're really nice. So yeah.
Yeah, I think you kind of mentioned it at first is like when we tie ourselves to our ideologies, like, to the root, right? And as soon as someone attacks an ideology, a certain way of thinking, then it almost is like an attack on you.
Yeah.
And I think that's very poisonous and toxic to ourselves to be like, I guess you could tie this to religion in a sense when someone's like a devout Christian or a devout whatever, right? And they tie themselves to that, and as soon as someone says, oh well, I don't think that Christianity, like I'm an atheist, right? Then it's almost like a stab on you because you tied yourself so close to that. And I think it goes both ways in that situation where like I had tied myself so close to like my previous experiences that almost I was like I won't say took offense, but almost wanted to challenge that. Yeah. I was like, oh, come on, like, how can you say something like that, right?
Yeah.
And in the reverse way, you kind of had your ideologies and you kind of were like very much attacked as soon as that wasn't had. But I also agree with like sometimes alcohol does encourage conversations and openness.
Yeah.
But I think there's a time and a place. And sometimes, or not sometimes, at the bar, I think it's worth saying like, hey, like, I like this conversation. I don't like where I'm at right now. And like how I'd rather just put a pin on it. Let's talk about it some other time.
Facts.
We could text about it. We could do something else. But I don't think this is the right time to have that conversation.
Yeah.
And I don't think it's avoidative at all. I think it's like the mature thing to do.
Yeah.
And there's just like during one of my lunch meetings I had, we like went over like what maturity is and like how it looks. And I for sure think that we all have opportunities to be more mature about things and how we approach things. And that for sure is one of those things that's just like, I don't know if we should be talking politics while like half or like 5 Long Island iced teas down, right?
Yeah.
It's not the right place for both people because now I think the ego sometimes presents itself too much while drunk.
Yeah.
Actually, I almost want to say the opposite too. Would you also say that sometimes being drunk erases an ego?
It makes me, because I give less fucks.
Yeah.
You know? And so, like,
I would say that that's, like, less ego.
Yeah, that is less ego.
Because as you were saying, the ego kind of protects you.
Yeah, my ego's gone. My ego's on vacation because I'm drunk and I'm like, I'm going to say whatever I want. I don't give a fuck about the consequences or what people think of me and stuff like that, which is, like, one of the reasons why I like being drunk, which is why I like drinking, because I like the feeling of being free in that sense. Like, there's nothing going on in my mind except for, like, the present when I'm drunk. But in that instance, I don't like having those type of conversations when I'm drunk anymore.
Yeah.
Especially if someone, like, I mean, if it's just, like, someone random at the bar, okay, whatever. But if it's, like, you know, someone that I might be seeing, like, on, like, you know, like, obviously, like, your It's House friends, like, we're gonna see you again. Like, I don't necessarily want us to have, like, a type of conversation like that the first time we meet at the bar. Like, I want us to have a good time, and then we can talk about that later, so... Yeah.
Yeah, what was that was like?
That was a while ago.
It was.
That was like in 2018.
I would say like 2017,
2017, yeah, probably, yeah.
I was a junior there.
Yeah.
Or senior somewhere in there, but yeah, and it just, I mean, if it wasn't for Itzal, I wouldn't have met you.
Facts.
And like I wouldn't have got the same energy or like today's conversation and what's gonna come from the future because and that's kind of why I value friendships, but at certain times like I need to. Because I'm a type of person that's like, I need to constantly like hit them up like, hey, how's everything going? You doing good? Cool. Like, and sometimes that robs me of my own time and privilege. I'm not privileged, but my own self-care. Just because I feel like sometimes it's a blessing and a curse having a lot of friends.
It is.
Because you want to hang out with everyone on the weekend. Like, I want to hang out with you. I want to hang out with you, but I can't because I made plans. And then like you start kind of crossing yourself. But I think it's just going back to myself and like being myself in the moment most of the time. Like, I want to genuinely hang out with people and I want to like talk to people. I want to get to know people. And like, especially these podcasts, like, I feel like each guest that I've had has solidified or added another strand to like the bridge between one another, right? And that's something that I value deeply, is a relationship. And I think it all kind of stems from the fact that like I kind of do like, and it's shitty to say because I hate saying it, but it's just one of those things. It's just like I like when people like me, you know. But that's also very much a toxic trait, because now it's constantly, if I leave someone in a bad mood or like someone feels bad about me, now it's weighing heavy on my head. Like, that person hates me now, and now I can't go to sleep, right?
Yeah.
So I gotta find that balance, or I'm still working on like understanding that I'm not gonna be perfect, and that goes for that perfectionist mindset, right? Like, I want every relationship that I have to be perfect in order to like give off that image, and my ego is showing there. But I think acknowledging some of your flaws and being honest with your flaws is the first step in trying to get to that other side.
Yeah, I agree. And it's just like, at the end of the day, like, I used to be the same way. Like, I would just be like, oh, like, this person doesn't like me. Like, what did I possibly do? But at the end of the day, I'm like, if I like me, that's all that matters. The people who do like me, they can be in my life. And if you don't, then that's your loss. But I also know I'm like very opinionated, and not everybody's going to like that. And that's okay.
Yeah, it goes back to that whole like just being yourself will bring people to you and deter people from you, and you gotta be okay if people are being deterred. Yeah, it's kind of the sign.
It's like, you're not meant to be around. That's fine.
Yeah, absolutely.
You can
go. So now I kind of want to do some rapid fire questions.
Okay.
And get your thoughts on it. All right.
Okay.
All right. So, what are your role models growing up, or who were your role models growing up?
Growing up, my role models would be my mom and my grandma. For sure.
Why is that?
Why? They were just, that's just who raised me. Those were like the women in my life that worked hard, that provided me everything. So that's just, I never really looked up to like, you know, like a superhero or a celebrity or anything. I just always looked up to the people who were like physically in my life.
Same.
Yeah.
For me, it's my mom as well, and it just kind of goes back to like
Shout out to moms.
Yeah, they're seriously. Awesome. I feel like that's a lot of the reason I have like such like admiration and respect for women is because like I saw my mom go through it, and I also saw my mom go through like shitty relationships. Yeah. So like for me, I was like, I want to be different than that. I don't want to follow in those footsteps, and in a sense, I want to change kind of the path for my family in a sense. You know, I want to be that different, the bump in the road. Facts. And what about now? Is it still your grandma and mom?
It's definitely still my mom. And probably now it's a peer. I have a peer. Her name's Natieli. Do you know Natieli?
I don't.
Okay, she went to high school with me in Natal, but she's definitely like, she's my peer, but it's like she teaches me so much, so she's definitely one of my role models now. And
what do you admire about Natieli? Natieli.
She is just like, one, she was actually the person who introduced me to feminism, and she was like one of my friends that was very like, she would just be like, what you're saying is problematic, and I'm going to tell you why. I'm your friend, and I don't want you to, you know, she was always like very, I don't want to say hard on me, but she was constantly teaching me like, you should consider thinking this way, or like, have you read this book or whatever. Like, she was constantly on me, and like at the time I would be like, oh, like Natalia's always on my fucking case. But now I'm like, I'm so grateful that she was like this, because she opened up a whole nother world to me. And then also just in general, she's just a very kind person from the inside out. And that was like one of the first people I met that I felt like I could be myself around. So she just kind of taught me how to create a safe space for other people. Yeah.
And I want to say that she has. Yeah. Like, I feel like, again, I always get nervous before like all of my conversations. Yeah. Like, it just flutters or whatnot. Yeah. But like, I feel very comfortable speaking to you, so I think Natieli did a great job. So shout out to her.
Shout out to Natieli.
What's something you wish you could learn how to do?
Something that I wish I could learn how to do. Something that I wish that I could learn how to do. The thing is, like, anything that I wish I could learn how to do, I could do it. I'm gonna say swim.
Swim?
Swim. I do not know how to swim. It's so embarrassing.
Mm-hmm.
I'm just scared.
This is the summer.
I know. I feel like
try.
once you become an adult, that's when you get scared. You know, like somebody should have taught me when I was 5.
Or is it because you got responsibilities? Like, damn, if I drown,
shit,
who's gonna
people
pay?
Are gonna care. Yeah,
ooh,
like,
fuck.
Yeah, facts.
Responsibilities can make you grow, but also make you. Actually, responsibilities will make you grow, and that's a good thing because like you're more mature and whatnot. Yeah. But they also make you lose track of just being in the moment because now you're just like, oh, should I go to that party or should I go swimming? Oh, I don't know. Yeah, like facts. I shouldn't do that thing.
Should I do this or should I pay this? Should I buy this or should I pay? I'm like,
Yeah, too many decisions.
Yeah.
What has been your biggest failure?
My biggest failure? I would say that my biggest failure is it's a failure and it's a blessing. Like, my biggest failure was the last relationship I was in because it was just very toxic. It was just very, like,
what
problematic.
Made it toxic?
It was just, well, I feel like, so before, like, I never realized, like, I had codependency, which is, like, a whole nother topic, but I was, like, in a very codependent relationship with someone, so I think because of that, like, I remember, like, when I first moved to San Diego, I was like, I'm going to finish grad school and then I'm going to move to LA. Like, that was my plan.
Yeah.
And then I got in a relationship with someone and I kind of just, like, forgot about myself. And he told me, he's like, we're going to move to Vegas. And then, like, my only goal was to move to Vegas, even though that was never my goal. I never wanted to move to Vegas. And I kind of, like, derailed myself the entire time to be with him.
Mm-hmm.
And then it didn't work out. And I was like, my world, like, crumbled because I didn't set myself to move to LA anymore, but it turned out to be a blessing in disguise because I learned, like, about spirituality and stuff during that time. But that was a failure because it's like, I know I shouldn't have been in that relationship, but I did it anyways.
I resonate with that or would have to say I'm the same. Like, when it comes to a relationship, like, without relationship, Eric, he's a very, like, independent, just self-driven guy, doesn't need much. But as soon as I am in a relationship, I almost, like, devote myself to that person, like, and show too much where they're like, oh, what are you doing this weekend? I'm like, whatever you want, you know. It's just like, what the fuck, like, where did that come from, right? Like, I had other shit, but what do you want to do? I'll do it with you, you know.
Yeah, for real.
And it's some shit, and it's got me into, it probably has ruined relationships because like my boundary setting when it came to, like, relationships was none. Yeah, I was like, what do you want to do? Yes, let's go do it. Yeah. I'll say fuck you to those friends. Yeah, what do you want me to do?
Literally, it's just so like, bad.
Fuck. So I get that. And the thing is, it's hard to practice that if you're not in a relationship. Because, like, for me, I'm like, oh, I'm not that person.
Yeah.
Like, next girl that comes around, next person that comes around.
Exactly.
Nothing.
Exactly. Because right now I'm cool. But I think for now I know I'm like, okay, like, I need to be, like, checking. I need to be, like the red flags, I need to stop missing them for me. They would be there, I would ignore them.
It's hard to do that, though, when you are trying to get to know someone.
It is.
Like,
because you're trying to give them grace.
It's just, like, physical. It's just like, oh, red flag. Let's just, like, you get to know people.
But my thing is, like, for me, like, I have, like, I call them non-negotiables. Like, I have non-negotiables, and I need to stop negotiating them. Like, if I say I want a guy that has, like, a positive mindset, like, sorry, but I can't be dating a guy that's fucking, like, you know, the opposite of that at the end of the day. So it's like, I have to be more responsible on that. Because my thing is, like, the common denominator is me. Mm-hmm. Like, I'm the one who's choosing them. So, like, I need to be better about that, you know?
Yeah.
Yeah.
That makes sense. Yeah, fuck that. And, like, again, it's like every time I get out of it, I'm like, I'm never doing that again.
Yeah, for real. I'm like, get it together.
Get it together.
No, we got it this next time.
Yeah, I think it goes back to just, like, understanding your worth and being like, and also, like, sometimes I fear losing that person, right?
Yeah.
And I'm like, if I say no to them this weekend, they're not gonna like me back.
Yeah.
Or they're gonna say, oh, well, fuck you, right?
Facts.
But I think that's more of, like, the anxiety and mental trauma that we put ourselves through. Because in reality, if you say no to something and they leave you because you said no to a weekend, exactly. Peace.
Natieli literally told me one time, she was like, you were fine before you met them, you'll be fine after you know them. Mm-hmm. And I'm like, exactly. Like, if they're not going to be around, you'll be good without them. And if if someone doesn't want to be around because you have boundaries and standards, then they do not need to be in your life at the end of the day, like at all. Like, you know, so.
Period.
Yeah.
All right. Let's see. So after the failure question.
Yeah.
We gotta pep it up a little bit.
Yeah.
What's been your proudest accomplishment so far?
My proudest accomplishment would definitely be graduating grad school. That was like the hardest shit I've ever done in my life.
For reals?
Truly, like.
What made it hard?
Oh, like I had never lived in another state by myself, so that was like on me, and then it was just a lot of fucking work. Like I was not prepared for the workload. I was not prepared for the imposter syndrome. I was not prepared for like the financial burden. I was not prepared for any of it. Just like, and then like I wrote my thesis, but I wrote it during COVID. So like that was very difficult for me because the support I needed like was in San Diego and I lived in Denver. And so just all of it was hard as fuck. But like finishing it, like I look back and I'm like, holy shit, I did that. Like that's cool as fuck.
That's awesome.
Thanks.
I want to know more about like you taking the leap to live by yourself in a foreign place, because that's something that I want to do and or will absolutely do in my future. Is I want to basically live in Colorado for a little bit more and kind of go on a solo America tour and also at one point go international. And like the scary part is that whole alone thing. Like
it is.
It's
but you get comfortable with yourself. Like now, like I can go anywhere by myself. I can go sit at a restaurant by myself.
Have you ever done that?
Yeah. I can go sit at a restaurant by myself. I can go on a walk by like there's nothing that I won't do alone. Like just even last weekend I went on a trip by myself and like
where?
I to San Diego and I just feel I don't know, like I truly enjoy my like own alone time. And also for me again, like it made me like I wanted to meet people, and it's like it was hard to meet people, so I had to go out of my way to put myself in a position to meet people. Yeah. So it helped my goals of being like an extrovert, but it helped me like also be comfortable with just being alone, like hanging out alone, because I lived alone. I didn't have a roommate. So yeah,
it's something that like does pass through my mind of like, oh shit, like I want to do this, but also there is a certain uncomfortability factor of like I'm gonna be alone and I gotta basically figure it out, you know?
Yeah. People can always come visit you is how I look at it. Yeah. Like when you're gone, like, and they want to, like your friends and stuff, they're gonna come visit you. Like anybody who's my closest friend, I saw them when I was in San Diego. So it's like people will come visit you. The friendships that are meant to last are gonna last because you guys are gonna keep in touch with each other. And I just feel like there's no right time to go. You just have to go. Like you just have to do it. Like, or you're never gonna do it if you try to plan it too much, you know? Because when I moved there, I had like $100. Like I did not set myself up well at all. But I was like, fuck it, I'll just go. Yeah.
Those are encouraging words.
Yeah.
Because
fuck it.
For me, like I have a date where I know what I'm doing, or like I have a plan of what I want to do. Yeah. But easily like that can crumble, and next thing you know, I'm like, oh, I gotta wait X amount of more time, right?
If you keep waiting, you're not gonna do it. Like you just have to go, because it's like, you know, like I think about it as like, you know, like when you have to pay a bill and like it's due, you'll figure out any way to pay it. Like even if you have to ask someone for help. So it's like when you move out by yourself and like you have all these different obstacles, like you're gonna figure out a way to do it. Well, hopefully, in theory, you know, if you're that type of person, like you're gonna figure out a way to navigate whatever you're doing. But you won't know that you can do it until you put yourself in that position. So you know,
that's a little bit of confidence.
It's always gonna work out. Yeah. You get faith in yourself.
I like that. No, and it just goes back to just wanting to experience new things, as you were saying. Like I have that same energy.
You have no kids. You have no like relationship that you can't really move around with. I just feel like you should try new things while you're young.
No, absolutely. I one of my also in my YouTube feed is like travel food fucking shit. So I'm like, I want to go there. I want to go there.
Those are so awesome.
Plugging Anthony Bourdain. He's got a movie coming out here soon. So if that's something interesting to anybody and to yourself, check it out. I'm for sure gonna check it out.
Facts. Me too.
So what big ideas have changed your mind in the last few years?
I would say that gratitude, which we already talked about. Like for me, because I would compare myself to like every fucking person I saw. So like me having gratitude, I'm like, oh wow, I'm so grateful for what I have. I don't even need to compare myself to you, because like I'm just grateful for what I have. So gratitude, self-love, because just the way I just feel like the way I was moving, it was just clear, like, I didn't have any self-love for myself. I had no respect for myself, like, none. So those are probably two, like, the main ones. And then a third one is just going with the flow. Like, I'm the type of person, I would try to plan every single thing. Like, I wouldn't even go to the grocery store without a list. And so it's like, sometimes you can't plan it. Like, sometimes you just have to go with the flow, let it be what it is, and it's going to work out in the end. And I remember before, my mom would be like, everything's going to work out. And I would be so pissed because I would be like, how do you know that? But, like, no, it really is. Now I'm like, oh, I get what you were saying. Like, it really is all going to work out. So those are probably, like, the three main things that I've learned.
Yeah, no, I like all three of them. I think in Eastern philosophy, religion is like known as the middle way. Like, I think it's Wu Wei, I want to say, where you just kind of have to, like, learn to let go of things and just take them as they come, and also having confidence that once things do come, you're going to be capable of handling them.
Facts. Like, you're good. You're always going to be good no matter what.
And I wanted to say this too prior to this podcast, which is, there's no reason to have anxiety over things that haven't happened. Yeah. And if they are going to happen, they're going to happen. If they don't, then they don't. So why put a load on yourself prior? And, like, my example is, like, when I hate getting vaccines or like a shot, and every time I know I'm about to get a shot, I get, like, all in my head, I'm like, I'm about to get a shot, like, oh, I fucking hate getting shots, or like getting my blood pulled or some shit like that. And the more I think about it, I'm like causing my day-to-day conflict, because now I'm thinking about it. Now I'm like, oh, on the days of, like, getting a damn shot, and then when I get it, it's just like, okay, it wasn't that bad. Like, you survived, you know?
You make it worse for yourself than it even is.
100%. What is something you're currently obsessed with?
Something that I'm currently obsessed with, I'm gonna go with avocado, obviously.
Avocados, like, let's go.
Bruh, like, I cannot eat anything without avocado. That's, like, my shit. Like, I just love it. Like, I gotta have it every day.
Fuck yeah. I love avocados.
It's so good.
Best, and, okay, what are some of your creative outlets?
My creative outlets, I like to draw. I really like drawing, and
I saw some of your drawings.
I like to draw. Drawing is, like, one of my creative outlets, and I would just say just writing, like, not necessarily journaling, but just, like, writing, like, letting myself go and just writing whatever I want to write down.
Perfect. What do you want to become, or I guess, let me ask the question before that.
Okay.
What is something you would like to tell yourself 5 years ago?
That I would like to tell myself 5 years ago? Yeah, if you could
go into a time machine and whisper into Imani's ear.
So, first of all, I want to be like, 5 years ago was when, 2016?
2016.
Oh, 2016. My ass, I would have been like...
just starting college? No.
That
2014.
Was, like,
are you the same year as Itzel?
Yeah.
So, yeah, you're 2 years into college, sophomore year.
Sophomore year.
You're about to graduate. Actually, you just graduated. You're going into junior year.
Yeah. No, back then, I would have told myself, stop talking to any guy you're talking
For reals?
to. Yes. Like, stop talking to trash. Like, have some self-value. Have some self-worth. I know for me, like, my biggest thing, like, I would just make piss poor, like, relationship things. So I wish I could go back and tell myself.
What encouraged that? Was it, like, looks that you immediately got attracted to, then you said fuck it to everything else?
No. Like, I think that for me personally, I know a lot of people go through this, but for me, like, I would see people and I, like, subconsciously thought they were better than me. Like, I felt inferior to them. And then, like, I would constantly want to feel validated by them. So it's like, if we didn't work out, I would be like, oh, like, if they don't like me, like, I don't have any value.
Damn.
Like, I mean, I wouldn't say that, but, like, that was going on in my mind. And that's just not true. Like, you know, you have value regardless of who doesn't like you, who doesn't want to date you, whatever. So I wish I could tell myself that, because I feel like I could have saved myself from a lot of, like, chasing people who clearly did not want to date me. And two, just being upset about certain shit that's like, okay, whatever, he doesn't want to date you, like, it's fine.
Yeah.
You know? So
yo, that's so true.
Yeah.
That's so true. It's just knowing your worth, and now
literally
you know your worth.
Your worth. Like, I want to shake myself. I want to, like, bitch slap myself. Like, get it together, girl. Like, yeah. That's
what you're leaving in the the note in your bedroom. Know your worth.
Yes. It's fine, though, because we know it now. We're moving forward.
This is a harder question, but where do you see yourself 5 years from now?
5 years from now, one thing specifically, I don't want to be working in an office job. I don't want to be working a 9 to 5. I hate it. Like, I really enjoy my job now, but it's like, I don't see myself doing, I just don't see myself sitting at a desk Monday through Friday. So now I'm trying to work towards putting myself in a position where I don't have to do that. But with everything else, I don't know. Hopefully I live in like California.
Yeah. You still have ambitions to go back?
Yeah, well, I want to move to the East Coast like in the next couple months. Like, I just want to try it out. I've never lived there and I'm young, but I would like to end up in California for sure. Yeah.
I'm in a similar wave. Like, I am not a fan of just waking up, clocking in 8 hours and clocking out type of thing. Yeah. Because in a sense, you could say that we're not free people. Yeah. You know, because you have responsibilities.
Weekend. What the fuck am I going to do in 2 days?
Not much.
No, that's
you got to squeeze it, and people got other plans and shit. You're like, well, now I got to work around their plans.
Literally. That shit sucks.
It does. Are you so... I guess that's where the entrepreneur vein of things comes into play. Or is there something that you'd like to cook up? Something that you could see yourself doing?
I think just at this point in time, like, I don't necessarily see myself having a business because I feel like you have to be passionate about having a business. If you're going to have a business, you need to be passionate about it. But I would definitely like to get into property. However, I need to put myself in like a financial position that I can even get into that. Mm-hmm. So that's like what I'm working on in the meantime.
What gets you excited in life? Like, what do you love? That you can talk about forever? That just like gets you in a good mood.
Honestly, meeting new people. Yeah. Meeting new people who are like really cool. Like, I can be like, oh my god, I met this girl at the smoothie place and she was so nice and we talked about blah 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 blah. Or I'm like, oh my god, the girl at Sephora today was blah 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 because I went to Sephora today and somebody was really nice. And I would say that's like one of my favorite things about life, like meeting new people and just like having a good experience with them. Even if we don't talk again, like if I just meet you at the bar one time, that's fine. Yeah. And I'm probably gonna tell a story about you for like like a minute, you know? Like, I'm gonna be like, yeah, I met this girl at the bar, but you know what I mean? That's like my favorite thing. Yeah.
So do you push yourself to go out of your way to meet new people now?
I do. I try to push myself to not only meet people, but like to have conversations with
Did this
people.
happen after San Diego?
No, this happened during San Diego because I had no friend. Like, I literally didn't know anyone when I moved to San Diego. So I was like, how am I going to make friends? And I just had to like force myself to meet people. And I met like so many people in San Diego that will probably be like my lifelong friends.
Yeah, that's awesome.
Yeah, it's
and if
cool.
you didn't take that energy or that risk to be like, hey, how's it going? My name is Imani.
Yeah, literally. Then I would have never met them. Yeah.
That's something that I wish everyone could put in their toolbox, but it's not the easiest
hard.
At first.
It is hard. It's scary, but once you do it, you're going to meet people.
Mm-hmm. If you had one wish, what would you ask a genie?
If I had one wish, what would I ask a genie? To pay my student debt. To pay all my debt. I have so much debt.
Yeah. I would say to that, my rule is depending on what the interest rate on that and like how big of a debt it is, like it benefits you more to put your money elsewhere than to try to pay it faster.
Facts.
So I think that's something that previous Eric would have wanted to hear because like for me it was like I had a perfectionist mindset going into it. I want to have a clean slate. I don't want no debt. So I put a lot of money into it. Yeah. And looking back on it now, like I have other avenues of generating higher interest on things than what the interest on those loans are. So in a sense, kind of, it's all circumstantial and I don't want to give financial advice to anyone. Yeah. But it's just one of those things that like, if you can put your money in other places to work harder than the one you have to pay off, I would much rather do that. And plus like, that's another conversation thick of nuggets of gold, right? Where it's just like the fact that your debt, you can't just snap your fingers with bankruptcy and erase, right? That's gonna follow you for life. But hopefully the people in power or people that are going to go into power start to make those realizations that is holding us back.
An entire generation.
Yeah.
I'm like, all of us have student debt.
Yep.
Yeah.
And it was so encouraged, right? It was like, you got to go to college. Like high school, elementary school, like since day one, you had to go to college.
Yeah, there was no other path ever presented towards us.
Yeah, unfortunately, but that's what we're dealt with. What is, let's see. What is one vocabulary word that must be used? Oh, nope, sorry. I'm just going through some of these notes.
Yeah.
Do you have a favorite quote?
My favorite quote? I don't know. I don't think I have one, no.
No?
No. Not right now.
What is your current favorite song?
My current favorite song? Yeah. Let me go on iTunes.
You got iTunes?
Yeah. But only because I don't pay for it. I'm on like my family plan.
Gotcha.
Or I would not pay for this.
Yeah,
Spotify is like $5.
Yeah, and it's really the place to be at.
Yeah.
I was in iTunes like I was representing, but after I transferred all my music to Spotify, which you can do. You just got to find an application for it.
Yeah.
It's worth it. It's for sure worth it.
Okay, my favorite song is definitely it's that song by Doja Cat and SZA, "Kiss Me More." Do you know what song I'm talking about?
I'm gonna play it at the very end.
Okay,
just because I have to clip it and then make a
Yeah. I just love that song. It's just so like
Kiss Me More, right?
It just makes me want to like, I don't know, go to the club, take a Molly and just be like
just start
so
sweating.
Free, sweet,
yeah,
like,
let's
free
go.
Spirit, yeah.
I fucks with it. What is like if you could write a tweet that everyone in the world would see? So you got 140 characters, which I believe what a tweet is. What would that tweet be? And this is the closing remarks, I guess.
Okay. At this time, I think my tweet, I'm not sure exactly how I would phrase it, but it would be like in regards to what we were talking about earlier. Like, one thing that I don't like is like cancel culture. Because again, it's the same thing as we were talking. You can't like, some people like have to learn certain things. They have to unlearn something and then they have to learn the right way. We can't just diminish someone for one mistake they had in fucking 2012. We need to have more compassion for people and we need to teach them things. So I'm not sure how I would wrap that up in a tweet, but like that's something that I would want everybody to know, because I just hate how like somebody makes one mistake and we just wipe them out. It's not fair. Yeah.
Tell me why how I thought how do I phrase it? Like, I feel like when I first met you, like I kind of felt that kind of way in a sense, right? But since then, I feel like it's not necessarily like that. And whether that's accurate or not, but that's just kind of how I like saw it.
Yeah.
But like for me, that just is a very relieving thing in the sense because like forgiveness does, and like not even forgiveness, but compassionate is like a way more powerful tool than like putting someone down in a sense, right? And I feel like sometimes with cancel culture or with some of the extreme leftist type of mindset of like, oh, you fucked up, like you got it, like it's never like coming from a place of compassion, which I think is desperately kind of needed in a sense. But yeah, I think that everyone in both, wherever you are in life, should try to abide by that. So forgiveness beats cancel culture, like something.
Yes, like we just have to give people a chance. Like we don't even give them a chance to right their wrongs. Like you just like see someone make a mistake and we're like, okay, we're not gonna fuck with you anymore. And I just feel like that's so unfair because I don't want someone to do that to me, because I know I said something fucked up in like 2013.
Yeah.
Like everybody that was acceptable back then. So I hate when we just like target one person for saying one thing that we probably all said. Yeah,
100%. Let's live by that, or at least that's how I try to live. I just want to also understand, because at one point you could also disagree with that person. Like I understand where you're coming from. Like I heard everything you told me, and I'm still kind of like hesitant about it. Yeah. But I'm not gonna let you kind of rule my headspace and be like, oh God, that person. Just like facts. Like, yep, you're gonna be the evil person that you are. At this point, I guess, do you have anything you'd like to plug? Anything you'd want people to do, or something you want to promote?
I don't know. I would say that if you haven't read The Power of Now, read The Power of Now. I would say that if you've read The Alchemist but you haven't read The Power of Now, read The Power of Now and then read The Alchemist again. Because that like completely, I found things in The Alchemist that I never found before, because I had like a new perspective from The Power of Now. So that's what I've been like telling people mostly. And then if you need another good podcast to listen to besides this one, of course, There's a podcast I listen to, and it's called The Self-Love Fix, and it's literally free therapy. So if you ever wanted to go to therapy, this is like literally free therapy, but that's all I have to
I wanted to ask you when you had mentioned it a couple times before what it was.
It's called The Self-Love Fix, and it's like, I promise you, it's like free therapy. Like she talks about so many different things, and I like it because sometimes like podcasts can be long, which I don't mind because I love podcasts, but not everybody likes that. So her episodes are like 15 minutes, and I feel like that's really like tangible, you know.
100%.
Yeah.
Thank you for, I guess, spreading that love, because that's what it is. Like, you're coming from a place of wanting to open people's perspectives. So, yeah, fuck yeah. Well, I really appreciated this conversation.
Same.
I hope many people listen to it, but if anything, I think it's just an archive for us to listen back into the future, and for your future generation, or our future generation, to look back on. So thank you, Imani Patterson, for everything you have given today.
Thanks for having me. This was fun. This was so fun.